Today I'm going to tell you the story of that time I had a 2-hour-long sales call that still didn't end up with the client signing up. Hello and welcome to Full Body Yes Sales, the podcast where we show you how to make more sales than ever in your online business in a way that feels authentic, empowering, and feels completely aligned with how you want to do business. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to the Full Body Yes Sales podcast. Today, as it's almost Halloween, it is at least when I'm recording this, I'm going to share with you some spooky sales stories essentially. So sometimes where the sales conversation, the sales call didn't quite go as planned, and sometimes when I ended up getting a no, sometimes when we ended up just things didn't really work out in the way that I was planning them to. Now, I wanted to share this because this is super important to normalize sales not always being shiny. Not every sales conversation we're gonna have is going to be a yes. Not every person is gonna be a dream ideal client, and we don't often see that talked about, right? We'll see people saying about how many clients they've signed, we'll see people talking about all the success, all the new clients, all the sales, but not actually talking about the no's. And I think we've really got to a place in the online industry where we almost feel like it's bad hearing the no's, and we feel like if we're hearing a no, that means we did something wrong and that means we shouldn't be selling as much. But actually, you're always going to hear those no's. There's always going to be the people who are not a good fit. There's always going to be the people who are going to ghost, unfortunately. Very on theme for Halloween there. We'll get into that with the story there. But there's always going to be this, right? This is always going to happen. And I think it's so important to just normalize that in sales. And actually, you hearing the no's is actually a good sign. If you're not hearing any no's, and if every single person you're having a conversation with is ending up being a yes, you're probably not selling enough. And I'd probably encourage you to go out and sell a little bit more, because you're probably not speaking to that many people if you're just hearing yeses exclusively. So I want to share some stories, essentially a few stories of mine of where it just hasn't really gone as planned. Some spooky, scary sales stories involving some ghosting as well. And yeah, just exposing all my sales, bad horror stories essentially, for your amusement for Halloween, and also just to show you that this happens. I've built a business that's made 6 figures, have a 6-figure dollar net worth. This happens, and also those things have happened as well. So it's not a bad thing. They happen. They're just a part of sales and they're completely okay. So want to normalize some of those with some of my own fun stories. So let's dive into the stories. I'm going to be sharing a few with you. I'm obviously not giving you any details about the person because we don't do that over here, but just giving you the general details of just what really happened here and just, how funny they were essentially. So let's kick it off with a great one. This was a couple of years ago. So I was maybe a year into my business at this point. I was getting on a sales call with someone who I thought would be a really good fit potential client. She was kind of new to her business, was really looking to monetize what she had built on her page so far. And we hopped on a sales call together. And at that point, I was pretty new to doing sales calls still, so I was a little bit nervous. I was a little bit if the other person was more of a leading personality, it was very easy for me to kind of step back a little bit essentially there. And this sales call, very long story short, ended up being a 2-hour-long sales call. It was literally 2 hours that we were on that call for. It was scheduled to be a 30-minute call. We were on that call for 2 hours, mainly because people pleasering just did not want to say, okay, we're wrapping this up here. We're done. I need to get off the phone now. And they didn't end up signing as a client. It was basically a free coaching session. I say sales call, it basically turned into a free coaching session for an hour of that. Their kids ended up coming in. I met the whole family basically. But yeah, it was a whole weird experience. And I think this was super interesting from the perspective of kind of confidence in sales, because I was, as I said, very much in that place of I was kind of new to doing sales calls. This was maybe the 5th one I'd had, something like that. So I was still a little bit new to doing sales calls. And was very much, if someone else was to take over the structure and just start kind of jumping in with different questions and asking me things, didn't really know how to shift it back to kind of what the plan was with the call essentially. So yeah, we had a 2-hour-long sales call. Literally was 2 hours, and after reached out to me, said they were going to think about it, reached out to me after and let me know that they couldn't afford it. It wasn't going to be something they were going to be moving forward with. So yeah, 2 hours essentially of all of the questions, and they were asking so many questions on, would the program do this? Will we do this? And as well, just coaching essentially questions of, okay, I'm struggling with this. What can I do with this? How should I approach this? What should I do about this Instagram page, etc.? And answered all of those. And it was still a no at the end of the day, which obviously sucked at the time, but it's completely fine. It happens. This has never ever happened again for me, and was a very good lesson to actually, one, keep the sales call just on track and keep it focused on, actually talking about working together, because that's what we're here for. Otherwise, it's really easy for it to just go off and spiral off in a million directions. And also a really great lesson to actually check if people are, essentially really potential clients in the first place, and check if they can actually, afford the program. Check if this pricing does work for them. Actually have some of those discussions before we even get on the call to qualify them, essentially, before we're just hopping on a call to then spend all that time for both of us, spend that time on that call, and then find out that it's not actually a good fit program. And at the time, I didn't have anything else to offer. I had no other programs. So there wasn't even okay, we can do this instead. Now, the second story that I want to share with you involves a little bit of ghosting. So very on theme for Halloween here. So I got ghosted. This has happened many times as well, side note. So this isn't just this one story, but I think this one in particular was just especially frustrating. So wanted to share that one. But I had a call with a potential client for one-to-one, and they were such a good fit client. We had the conversation together about obviously where they were at. I'd had a client very similar to them. We'd got amazing results for that client. So it was really, really in a positive place, essentially, after the sales call. As usual, went away to think about things, because I never like just charging someone and would ask for credit card details on the call, because I'm not a fan of that personally. So went away to think about things. And then I reached out again, a week after, when we discussed that we would be reaching out, and just complete ghosted. Read the message, just ghosted. Followed up again, just complete ghosted. So I don't know what was happening with them in their business, but ended up just completely getting ghosted essentially there, after we had, had some really great conversations together, really great connection, sounded like an honestly perfect fit for this person, and they sound like a perfect fit for the program, and just ended up going absolutely nowhere with that. Now I can try and make a guess at why that would have happened. I very much think it's something on their end in terms of situation changed, etc. But yeah, it happens with the ghosting sometimes. Sometimes people just will not respond, and that's completely okay. Obviously, it's a small percentage of people that are going to be doing that, but I think it's important just to normalize that it does happen sometimes, and this is rarer occurrence for sure, and maybe one a year where this happens. But yeah, it kind of sucks. Obviously, after you've had the full call, they especially sounded like a really, really good fit, and we were having really great conversation. It was sounding like a really positive kind of fit there, then didn't end up working out. For this person in particular, I would very much guess it was a time issue, and they were just really overwhelmed and busy, because that was one of the things they were looking for support with, which obviously I talk a lot about making more and working less. So that's kind of my specialty area. That's why you're coming to me in the first place. But I think they were almost feeling a little bit potentially too busy and too overwhelmed just to take on anything, even in terms of coaching, because they were just really, really filled in their calendar already. So I would guess that was what happened there. But yeah, sometimes you get ghosted, and sometimes that happens, and sometimes we're never going to know why. And that is business, and that is sales, and that's just what happens sometimes. Now, here's a fun one. Well, not fun really, but I feel like so many people have had experiences of this, and you probably have as well, where you will be in a sales conversation with someone, and this hasn't happened for a while. So I'm thinking of an example specifically from my very first year in business, where we were talking about working together, discussing it, sounded like a really good fit. And then you end up getting told it's too expensive, can't afford that pricing, that doesn't work, etc., out of budget. And then a few weeks later, they sign on to another program, which is twice the price. So it's really interesting with that. And I think I can really, from my experience now, look back and kind of see what happens in those kind of scenarios. So firstly, I would say when you're kind of getting the too expensive objection, from my experience, 90% of the time there's something else going on here. It's usually just the value isn't aligning with what they're, looking at with the price point essentially. So they're not seeing as, that is 5K worth of value for me. That is worth 5K, or this is really going to solve my problem. So it's often just a case of the offer and how that's been presented, and how you've really connected that with what they're looking for. So I can very much see that was really what happened there. And then obviously when another offer comes along that feels like a full body yes fit for them, it feels like a really obvious yes, it's really easy to say yes to that offer, because it feels so much of a good fit essentially, even though it's twice the price. So often it isn't actually down to the pricing. And I think that's just a really helpful sales lesson. I feel like, especially, first year of business, I had this happen a few times. Since then, it's been very, very, very rare. But I think it's really helpful just to take it as a sales lesson, essentially, of, okay, how can I actually increase the perceived value that someone is seeing this offer as, essentially? So they're not seeing it as something which is, yeah, okay, it sounds good, it could help me. Instead, it's, wow, this is perfect. This is exactly what I've been looking for. That's really the place that we're wanting to get to with people, where it feels like a complete full body yes. It feels like such a perfect fit. Essentially, it feels like this offer is made for them, because then it's really easy to justify the price point, right? Versus if the offer just sounds okay, yeah, that'll work. That sounds okay. That sounds kind of good there. Then it's really easy to find something else which feels like a better fit and jump into that program instead, because most people would rather, pay double for something which feels like a full body yes, 100% yes fit, versus something which feels like just a good fit, feels kind of okay, will hopefully get the job done. So those are 3 of my scary sales stories, essentially. Hope this has been a super fun one for you, but I really just wanted to share this because it's a super fun theme for Halloween. Wanted to be on theme there. And secondly, I think it's just really important to actually share some of the no's sometimes, because we never see people talking about this. We don't see people talking about the rejections that they had. We don't see people talking about the times a client said no, or someone wasn't a good fit, or it didn't work out with this potential client, but they literally happen for every single person in business. And it's almost a bad thing if it's not happening. So what I would really encourage you to do to take away from this is obviously that, yes, I can breathe a sigh of relief. It's completely normal that client said no a few weeks ago. It's completely fine there. And also, I want you to, it sounds weird, but almost celebrate the no's a little bit. I want you to actually start seeing them as just, oh wow, I can celebrate that I actually showed up and sold. I can celebrate that I actually went out and pitched my offer, and I actually showed up and, took a chance with sales, essentially, because that is all that the no means. It means that you put yourself out there. It means you pitched your offer. It means you talked about how someone can work with you. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. And the more no's you're hearing, just categorically, the more yeses you're going to hear, because the more people you're reaching out to, the more people you're having conversations with, the more people you will find that are a really good fit. So then the more people will say yes, the more people will become clients, the more sales you'll actually get. So actually I would challenge you to celebrate those no's a little bit, and to actually almost make it a little bit of a fun game of, how many no's can I possibly hear? Can I track them and actually celebrate them? And can it be a good thing? And can it be just part of the journey, instead of it being this bad thing, instead of it being this negative thing that I need to almost feel like I have to hide away from, because, everyone else seems like they're doing so well and they're not getting any rejections, but I feel like I'm getting so many rejections. It is literally just a part of the journey, and pushing through those is sometimes a difference between the people who do just stay in business and become really successful after 5 years, versus the people who burn out and feel like, they're the only one who's experiencing this, is just seeing that actually it's so normal to have this, and being okay with those no's as well. So I really want to challenge you to just be more okay with them and just normalize those a little bit, and realize they're completely okay when you're hearing those no's. And also, the more no's you're hearing, just factually, the more yeses you will be hearing at the end of the day. So if you have any funny sales stories as well, whether they are yours or someone else's, would love to hear them in the comments. We can chat our funny stories together, and I will definitely do another part 2 next year as well and think of some more. But if you found this video enjoyable, make sure you give this video a like, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of the Full-Body Sales podcast. I post an episode every single Monday with sales strategy, sales tactics, and just value to help you get more sales in your business and help them feel like a full body yes at the end of the day. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week in the next video.